you accurately describe the South Korean government's position, that they can only talk to North Korea right now about denuclearization, and that human rights is going to have to come later, that there will be economic liberalization, and somewhere down the road they can talk about human rights. I think that is a very short-sighted approach. It's basically a decision by President Moon and his government to have conversations with North Korea exclusively on Kim Jong-un's terms. It treats the North Korean government as if it is incapable of doing two things at once. It pretends that the North Korean government cannot walk and chew gum at the same time. We know that's not true. We know governments are perfectly capable of negotiating around two things. And just because Kim Jong-un is going to pretend to have a fit, we know in other circumstances the government has accepted the need to address human rights as part of other things that it wants. So if you take, for example, the World Food Program, or UNICEF, UN agencies that have said, yes, we will give you humanitarian aid, but you have to accept global standards about transparency, about steps to be taken so there is not diversion of aid. And the North Korean government accepted that. And similarly with the nuclear issue, human rights should not be understood as separate from denuclearization. If you think about it, there would be no nuclear program today in North Korea if it were not for severe repression. This is a poor country. The people, if they had a choice, would never accept scarce funds being diverted away from education, from healthcare, from housing, to build nuclear weapons. Why does this happen? Because the people don't have any say in the matter. They're completely repressed. So if there were attention to human rights, we wouldn't have a nuclear problem. And we should recognize that respect for human rights is one part of the solution to the nuclear problem. Even if you take the issue of economic relations as a way of reducing tensions, you're going to need to address human rights as part of the process. Because, yes, China or Russia will invest in North Korea without regard to human rights. But no South Korean company could afford to do that. Imagine a South Korean company opening up a factory in North Korea, and suddenly its workers would be subjected to forced labor, or women workers could be brought down the halls and raped, or union leaders would be thrown in prison. No company worried about its reputation could tolerate that kind of complicity in serious human rights abuses. So if South Korea wants closer economic relations with the North as a way of reducing tensions, it's going to have to address human rights. So I think President Moon is naive and short-sighted to pretend that human rights can wait. Human rights are going to have to be part of the denuclearization effort. And the South Korean government should stop accepting negotiations solely on the terms of the North Korean government. Now, we did make this point to the North Korean officials with whom we met. We met with the Foreign Minister Hong, we met with the Vice Minister of Education. We asked to meet with President Moon, even though he's a human rights lawyer, even though he should know about it, he said no. Evidently, he doesn't want to talk about human rights right now. He has a one-dimensional focus on denuclearization. And that simplistic approach is much less likely to work than a more comprehensive. Now, I can understand, initially, President Moon's top concern was avoiding a war. We all know that Trump threatened war. But now Trump solved the problem that he created by having his photo op opportunity with Kim Jong-un. So at this point, imminent war is not on the horizon. We're back to traditional discussions about denuclearization, and those traditional discussions can be more sophisticated than the one-dimensional approach. perceived to be as wrong. There's a degree of awareness by officials that this is wrong. The rape doesn't take place out in the open. Women are dragged off to a private place and are raped there. And the reason for that is that there's a theoretical possibility that the government could retaliate against the official. That hardly ever happens. But officials are worried about political vendetta against them, and then their behavior and rape could be used to politically proceed. So that's why it's not as if they are oblivious to this being wrong, but it is so rare that this is punished that it basically just proceeds with impunity as part of the daily business of state. Now, the interesting thing from the perspective of women, again, they put up with this, and I wouldn't say that they're oblivious to what's happening. The concept of rape, though, tends to be understood in North Korea as simply physical violence. Rape is it's used as a conclusory term in the law. It's not defined. And so the common understanding within North Korea is you need violence. The kind of abuse that we're describing in this report typically doesn't need violence because the women are completely subject to the authority of the officials. They know that they would face severe retaliation if they didn't submit, and so they submit. It's a situation of coercion rather than physical violence. That is still rape. But many North Korean women, at least until they got to the South, didn't understand it was rape. And that's, in many ways, one of the most disturbing parts of this report is that the level of subjugation of women is so intense that they didn't even understand that they would be raped when they were. And I already discussed the importance of human rights as part of the denuclearization effort. I should say that there's nothing wrong with talking to somebody who is responsible for crimes against humanity. You have to do that. That's life. But it doesn't mean you have to ignore crimes against humanity. Now, you mentioned the International Criminal Court. It does not have jurisdiction over North Korea. And while we could get jurisdiction through the UN Security Council, China would be too. So we are left pursuing other forms of accountability. Now, the UN Human Rights Council has authorized the UN High Commissioner for Human Rights, through her office here in Seoul, to begin collecting evidence for future prosecution. This is similar to what has been done now with Syria. It's similar to what's been done with Rohingya and Myanmar. So this is a step short of prosecution, but it's a preparation for prosecution. In the future, it could be that the International Criminal Court gets jurisdiction through the change of government in North Korea. It could be that a special North Korea tribunal is established by the UN General Assembly, that there is no China veto. Or it could be that individual governments using what's known as universal jurisdiction to prosecute Korean officials that don't consent. So there are possibilities out there. But in the meantime, what's required is pressure. The Korean government, President Moon, talks about we need persuasion, not pressure. That's ridiculous. We're never going to be able to persuade Kim Jong-un to utterly change his regime. He's built a regime on severe pressure. And so what is needed is certainly dialogue with pressure to accompany it. And that pressure can take the form of targeted sanctions against individuals responsible. It can take the form of prosecutions. It can take the form of public condemnations by the UN or individual governments. But we shouldn't pretend that we're just going to quietly talk to Kim Jong-un and suddenly he's going to become a nice guy with human rights. That's not a serious human rights. Negotiations on the terms of Kim Jong-un. And that's a mistake. Of course, Kim Jong-un says, I only want to talk about denuclearization, not human rights. He doesn't get to set the agenda. He has things he wants. He wants economic relations. He wants economic development. He wants to become a a more normal country economically. South Korea is in a position to say, no, we don't just stop denuclearization. This is part of a broader context that has to include human rights. Because that's the only way that there's going to be any guarantee that North Korea doesn't continue to divert scarce resources from eradicating poverty to building nuclear bombs. It's the only way you're ever going to get international investment in North Korea by anybody other than China. Because no major company can afford to invest in a situation where they're going to become complicit in serious human rights violations. So it's easy enough for President Moon to do what the World Food Program did, to do what UNICEF did, and to say, you want something from me, you've got to accept the global standards that go with that. It's a lack of political will. It's a reflection of political cowardice. It's not a reflection of reality that President Moon refuses to address both denuclearization and human rights at the same time. How sophisticated. They negotiate two things at once every place around the world. There's no reason why North Korea should be accepted. If I could just reiterate that. Imagine if President Moon were to go into his next conversation with Kim Jong-un and say, I want you to stop the rape of North Korea. And do we really think Kim Jong-un would say, we're calling off the denuclearization talks because they're talking about stopping rape of North Korean women? That's the end. Does anybody think that that would be a credible position? And so why can't President Moon say, yes, we're going to discuss denuclearization, but I also want you to stop the rape of North Korean women? That is an utterly feasible, practical, doable approach. As I said, governments can walk and chew gum at the same time. They can do two things. So the reason that President Moon is not bringing up human rights abuses, serious abuses like rape, is because he chooses not to. This is not dictated by political reality. He can do both. I would love to distribute this report widely in North Korea. We know that that's not his plan. We know that the North Korean government does everything it can to prevent the North Korean people from learning about the outside world. It's trying to shut down access to the Chinese local phone service. It's trying to prevent distribution of DVDs of South Korean soap operas and TV shows. So they don't want North Koreans to learn about this kind of thing. There's a limit to what we can do to distribute within them. But that's why we depend on the rest of the world to put pressure on Pyongyang. Now, we chose to focus on this report for several reasons. First, obviously, this is a very serious form of abuse that many, many North Korean women suffer. And so it was an important issue to address in its own right. But second, there is a tendency for much of the world not to identify with North Korea. They're sort of a faceless mass. They're seen as sort of automatons that just submit to this pervasive authority. And we thought that the issue of rape and sexual violence was a way of personifying the North Korean people, to help the rest of the world identify with the plight of people living under such a severely oppressive government. We also chose this topic because this is a fixable issue. This is not seeking revolutionary change in North Korea. This is something the government doesn't depend on to stay in power. This is something the government could fix tomorrow if it wanted to. The persistence of rape and sexual violence in North Korea is simply a matter of political choice of Kim Jong-un and his government. It is in no sense a necessary part of his repressive system. And so we hope that this is an issue that the rest of the world will pick up upon, recognize that it can change, and it can do this quickly. This does not require the sort of revolutionary change that might take years and years to fix. This is something that can be addressed and begin to be repaired tomorrow. Brought up this report. We brought up a range of other issues as well, including everything from the need to broaden the question of family reunification, so it includes people who escape from North Korea, not simply long-term families living in Ohio. We talk about, with the foreign minister, the importance of Korea playing a positive role within the region. This is one of the region's biggest democracies. we should be doing more to promote human rights in Vietnam and Cambodia and Sri Lanka and Myanmar. So we want to see South Korea stopping to only look North Korea, but recognize it as a role within the broader region. In terms of President Moon, we just got to know. We didn't get a no explanation. So I don't know what he was thinking. I should say that it is pretty common for me as the head of Human Rights Watch to meet with heads of state, heads of government. I just this past month I met with Angela Merkel, the German chancellor. I was in Lebanon and I met with the Lebanese president and the prime minister. We do this. This is governments recognize that we're a serious principle-based organization, and we have important conversations with them. So it was disappointing that President Moon chose not to meet with us. And I can only speculate as to his reasons, but it's clear it was not a topic that he wants to pursue. He is still in this mindset that all we can talk about is denuclearization. It's not human rights are not possible. And it's disappointing because he has in many ways turned himself into a public relations agent for Kim Jong-un. And that's not his job. We are past the point of imminent war. Trump's threats have been solved by Trump's hurdle. So we're back to kind of a normal situation where we can pursue denuclearization and out of the office. So I hope that the issuance of this report provides a moment of reflection for the President. I hope that this gives him a chance to say, oh, wait a minute, do I have to be so one-dimensional in my approach to Pyongyang? Can't I do two things at once? Do I really think it will shut down nuclear negotiations if I discuss the importance of ending the rate of North Korean nuclear? I think any honest assessment of this would recognize that he can't do two things at once. That it's important to do two things at once. That the nuclear negotiations over the long term are not going to succeed unless he does two things at once. So I hope that this is a moment of reflection, reevaluation, and ultimately redirection by President Moon. I think you're right to point out that there's a big societal dimension to this, that there was systematic subordination of women by a largely male leadership. Yes, one way to break through that is to appeal to the handful of women who are in positions of somewhat leadership. But I also want to stress that this is not just a societal problem. You cannot chalk this up to just gender discrimination in women. This is also a governmental issue. This is a public policy choice by the North Korean government to accept the sexual abuse of women. To just accept that this is one way of officials getting paid in a system where the government doesn't pay them very much. I mean, for the same reason that widespread economic corruption is tolerated, sexual abuse and rape is tolerated. So I think it's important for us not to just focus on the societal dimension. There's an enormous political dimension of this problem. And you're right that we should appeal to the handful of women in authority that help us change this. But this is not about simply changing society. Yes, education is part of the issue. This is about changing policy. And policy can change much more quickly than society. Policy is selective, particularly in an autocratic state like North Korea. Policy can change in a dime if the leadership chooses that. So we need pressure on that leadership to force it to stop tolerating the rape. Journalists, everybody tomorrow will know that as well. So this is not going to be a hidden detail. And I appeal to certainly South Korean women leaders, but all South Korean political leaders to stop the one-dimensional approach to President Moon. With President Moon's help, we can stop the rape of women in North Korea. But he's got a problem. He can't pretend that discussing the rape of women is going to torpedo nuclear negotiations. That's ridiculous. And I think we need all South Koreans to say, we can address two things at once. Yes, pursue denuclearization, but we shouldn't pretend that we just have to put up with the rape of women for years and years and years while the denuclearization talks proceed. We can address the rape of women now and fix it tomorrow. But we need President Moon to take it up. We need to stop hiding behind the denuclearization talks as an excuse never to talk about human rights. That's a false excuse and we should stop accepting it.